My girlfriend broke up with me saying she needs to see what else is out there and that we're too young to be so serious, so I respected her decision and moved on with my life. But 8 months later, she showed up crying at my door begging for another chance only to find out I'm engaged to someone amazing. My name is Nathan, and I'm a 27-year-old software engineer who learned the hard way that when someone tells you they want to explore other options, you should take them at their word and let them go. This is the story of how my ex-girlfriend thought the grass was greener on the other side, only to discover she'd already been standing in the greenest pasture possible. I met Jenna when we were both 24, working at different companies but in the same tech building downtown. We'd see each other in the coffee shop on the ground floor every morning, and after weeks of awkward eye contact and small smiles, I finally worked up the courage to introduce myself. She was a marketing coordinator for a startup, and I was a junior developer at a larger firm. We hit it off immediately. Jenna was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. She was outgoing where I was more reserved, spontaneous where I was planned, and social where I was content with smaller circles. She brought excitement and unpredictability to my structured life, and I thought I brought stability and dependability to hers. For 3 years, we seemed like a perfect match. Our relationship moved at what I thought was a natural pace. We became exclusive after 2 months, moved in together after a year and a half, and started talking seriously about our future together. We discussed marriage, kids, buying a house, and all the typical relationship milestones. Jenna seemed enthusiastic about these conversations and often brought up timeline-related topics herself. I was completely blindsided when everything fell apart last spring. It started with Jenna becoming more distant and critical. She'd make comments about how we'd fallen into a routine and how we were acting like an old married couple despite being in our mid-20s. She started going out more with her single friends and coming home with stories about their dating adventures and hookup experiences. At first, I didn't think much of it. People go through phases where they want more social time, and I figured Jenna was just feeling cooped up after a long winter of mostly staying in together. I encouraged her to spend time with her friends and even suggested we plan some more adventurous dates to break up our routine. But Jenna's dissatisfaction continued to grow. She started making comments about how her friends were living their best lives and experiencing everything the city had to offer. She'd come home from girls' nights with stories about the guys her friends were meeting and the exciting dates they were going on. She seemed almost envious of their single lifestyle. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in April. I had planned a nice dinner at home with wine and Jenna's favorite takeout from the Italian place we both loved. I thought it would be a good opportunity to reconnect after a few weeks of feeling disconnected. Instead, Jenna barely touched her food and seemed distracted throughout the entire meal. "Nathan, we need to talk," she said finally, pushing her plate away. I felt my stomach drop. Nothing good ever follows those words. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about our relationship, about where we're heading." "Okay," I said carefully. "What kind of thinking?" "I love you, I really do. But I keep feeling like we're rushing into something serious without having really experienced life first." "What do you mean by experienced life?" Jenna took a deep breath. "I mean we started dating when we were 24, and we've been together for 3 years. We moved in together, we're talking about marriage, and sometimes I feel like I skipped over a whole phase of my life." I was starting to understand where this was going, but I held on to hope that I was wrong. "What phase do you feel like you skipped?" "The phase where you date different people, have different experiences, figure out what you really want in a partner by trying different relationships." "And you feel like you need to have those experiences now?" "I think I do. I look at my friends who are single, and they're meeting new people all the time, going on interesting dates, having adventures. Meanwhile, we stay in most nights watching Netflix and talking about 401k contributions. Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive, Jenna. We can have adventures together. We can try new things as a couple. But that's just it, I want to try new things as myself. As a single person. I want to see what else is out there before I commit to spending my life with one person." The words hit me like a physical blow. "So you want to break up?" "I think we should take a break. See other people. Figure out if what we have is really what we want or if it's just comfortable and familiar." "Jenna, there's no such thing as taking a break. Either we're together or we're not." "Then I guess we're not. At least not right now." I stared at this woman I'd been planning a future with, who was now telling me she needed to explore other options before deciding if I was worth committing to. It felt surreal and devastating at the same time. "Is there someone specific you want to see?" I asked, dreading the answer. "No, it's not about anyone specific. It's about the experience. About not wondering what if for the rest of my life." "So you'd rather wonder what if about us instead?" "I'm hoping I won't have to wonder. I'm hoping that after we both explore and experience other relationships, we'll realize what we had was special and come back to each other stronger." "That's not how life works, Jenna. You can't put a relationship on pause and expect it to be waiting for you when you're done experimenting." "Why not? If we're really meant to be together, then we'll find our way back to each other." I realized then that Jenna had already made up her mind about this. She'd been planning this conversation for weeks, maybe months. She'd constructed a fantasy where she could have her cake and eat it too, explore the single life while keeping me as a backup option. "If this is what you really want, then I respect your decision," I said finally. But I need you to understand that if you leave, I'm not going to wait around for you to decide I'm worth choosing. I wouldn't expect you to wait. I think you should date other people too. See what's out there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you choose to leave this relationship to explore other options, then this relationship is over. Permanently. Jenna looked taken aback. I think she expected me to fight for her or beg her to reconsider. Instead, I was calmly explaining the consequences of her choice. You're being really dramatic about this, Nathan. I'm being realistic. You're telling me I'm not enough for you, that you need to see if you can find someone better. I'm not going to sit around hoping you'll eventually decide I'm worthy of your commitment. It's not about you not being enough. Yes, it is. You literally just told me you want to see what else is out there. That means you think there might be something better than what we have. Jenna tried to backtrack and explain that it wasn't about me personally, but about her own growth and experiences. But the damage was done. She'd made it clear that she valued the possibility of finding someone better more than she valued what we'd built together. The conversation lasted another hour, but the outcome never changed. Jenna was determined to explore her options, and I was determined not to be someone's backup plan. We agreed that she would move out within 2 weeks, and we'd split our shared expenses and belongings fairly. The next 2 weeks were awkward and painful. Jenna seemed to expect that I'd change my mind and beg her to stay, or at least express more emotion about the breakup. Instead, I focused on practical matters, helping her find a new apartment, dividing our stuff, and transitioning back to living alone. I think my calm response unnerved her. The night before she moved out, she tried to have another conversation about how we were making a mistake and how we should stay in touch. I told her that staying in touch would only make it harder for both of us to move forward. So this is really it? She asked, tears in her eyes. This is what you wanted, I reminded her. I wanted a break, not a permanent breakup. I explained that those are the same thing for me. You made your choice. Jenna moved out the next day, and I began the process of rebuilding my life as a single person. The first few weeks were admittedly difficult. Not because I regretted my decision to let her go, but because adjusting to living alone after 3 years takes time. I'd gotten used to having someone to share meals with, someone to talk to about my day, someone to make plans with on weekends. But after the initial adjustment period, I started to remember what I'd enjoyed about being single. I had more time for hobbies I'd neglected, like rock climbing and photography. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen much during my relationship. I took a weekend trip to visit my brother without having to coordinate with anyone else's schedule. More importantly, I started to recognize some things about my relationship with Jenna that I'd overlooked while we were together. I realized that I'd been doing most of the emotional labor in our relationship, planning dates, initiating conversations about our future, working through conflicts when they arose. Jenna had been more of a passive participant, going along with my efforts but not contributing much initiative of her own. I also realized that Jenna's complaints about our relationship being routine weren't really about needing more adventure. They were about her wanting the excitement of new relationships without the work required to maintain a long-term partnership. She wanted the honeymoon phase to last forever, which isn't realistic or sustainable. 3 months after our breakup, I started dating again. Not because I was looking for something serious immediately, but because I was ready to meet new people and see what was out there. Unlike Jenna, I didn't view dating as a way to validate my decision to leave my previous relationship. I just wanted to enjoy meeting new people without any pressure or agenda. That's when I met Riley. She was a physical therapist who shared my love of outdoor activities. We met at a rock climbing gym, and what started as a casual conversation about climbing techniques turned into a 3-hour discussion about everything from travel to career goals to family values. Riley was different from Jenna in almost every way. Where Jenna was impulsive, Riley was thoughtful. Where Jenna was focused on external validation, Riley was confident in her own choices. Where Jenna seemed to view relationships as limiting, Riley saw them as opportunities for growth and partnership. Most importantly, Riley never made me feel like I was competing with other options or like she was settling for me. From our first date, she was clear about her interest and engaged in building something meaningful together. Riley and I took our time getting to know each other. We dated for 2 months before becoming exclusive, and we spent a lot of time talking about what we wanted from a relationship. Unlike my experience with Jenna, where important conversations often felt one-sided, Riley was an active and enthusiastic participant in planning our future together. 6 months into our relationship, I knew Riley was the person I wanted to marry. Not because I was rushing or trying to prove a point, but because our compatibility and shared values made a future together feel natural and exciting. I proposed to Riley 8 months after Jenna and I broke up. She said yes immediately, and we started planning a wedding for the following fall. I'd never felt more certain about a decision in my life. That's when Jenna came back. Update 1. 2 weeks after Riley and I got engaged, Jenna showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning. I was making breakfast for Riley and me when I heard the knock on the door. Riley was in the shower, so I answered alone. Jenna looked terrible. She'd lost weight, her hair was unkempt, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She also looked shocked to see how happy and healthy I appeared. "Hi, Nathan," she said nervously. "I hope it's okay that I came by." "What do you need, Jenna?" "I was hoping we could talk. About everything that happened between us." "I don't think that's a good idea." Please. Just give me 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I didn't want Riley to overhear this conversation, not because I was hiding anything, but because Jenna was clearly in an emotional state and I didn't want to subject Riley to drama from my past. I made a huge mistake, Jenna said immediately. The biggest mistake of my life. Okay. I thought I wanted to explore and see what was out there, but everything I found just made me realize how good we had it together. I'm sorry that didn't work out for you. Nathan, I want us to try again. I know I hurt you, and I know I have a lot to make up for, but I've learned so much about myself and what I really want. What you really want is to come back to something comfortable after discovering that dating isn't as exciting as you thought it would be. Jenna's face flushed. That's not fair. Isn't it? You left me because you wanted to see if you could find something better. Now you're back because you didn't find anything better. I left because I was scared of commitment and didn't realize what I had. That's different. Not to me it isn't. Jenna started crying then, talking about how miserable she'd been for the past 8 months and how she'd realized that all the dating and hookups in the world couldn't compare to what we'd had together. She said she'd dated several guys but none of them measured up to me in terms of compatibility, kindness, or long-term potential. I know I don't deserve another chance, she said through tears. But I'm hoping you'll consider it anyway. I'm hoping that what we had means enough to you that you'd be willing to try again. That's when I told her about Riley. I'm engaged, I said simply. Jenna's face went white. Engaged? To who? Someone I met a few months ago. Someone who didn't need to explore other options to know that she wanted to be with me. A few months ago? Nathan, we were together for 3 years. How can you be engaged to someone you've only known for a few months? Because when you know, you know. And when someone makes you feel valued and chosen rather than like a backup option, it's easy to commit to them. Jenna tried to argue that I was rushing into something new to avoid dealing with my feelings about our breakup, but I stopped her. Jenna, you told me you needed to see what else was out there. I'm not what's out there anymore. I'm someone else's person now. But don't you think it's worth trying to work things out? Don't you think 3 years together means something? 3 years meant everything to me. That's why it hurt so much when you decided it wasn't enough for you. The conversation continued for another 15 minutes, with Jenna becoming increasingly desperate and emotional. She offered to go to couples counseling, to prove she'd changed, to do whatever it took to win me back. But there was no going back. Not just because I was with Riley now, but because Jenna had fundamentally changed how I saw her and our relationship. She'd shown me that her love was conditional and that she viewed our relationship as something she could walk away from and return to at will. I hope you find what you're looking for, I told her finally. But it's not going to be with me. Jenna left crying, and I went back inside to find Riley dressed and curious about who had been at the door. I told her the whole story, and her response was perfect. That must have been difficult, she said, hugging me. Are you okay? Not jealous, not insecure, not worried that I might have second thoughts. Just concerned about my emotional well-being and ready to support me through an awkward situation. That's the difference between someone who trusts you completely and someone who's always looking over their shoulder for better options. Update 2. In the weeks following Jenna's surprise visit, I learned more about what her exploration had actually looked like, and it painted a clear picture of someone who had no idea what she'd thrown away. Through mutual friends, I heard that Jenna had thrown herself into the dating scene with unrealistic expectations and poor judgment. She'd been using multiple dating apps simultaneously and going on dates with different guys several times a week. According to our friend Mike, who'd stayed in touch with both of us, Jenna had been treating dating like a full-time job. But instead of finding the exciting adventures and meaningful connections she'd expected, Jenna had encountered the reality of modern dating. A lot of people looking for casual hookups, guys who weren't interested in commitment, and the emotional exhaustion that comes from constantly starting over with new people. Mike told me that Jenna had become increasingly frustrated with the quality of men she was meeting. She'd complain that they weren't as thoughtful as I'd been, that they didn't share her interests, that they weren't looking for anything serious. She apparently spent a lot of time comparing her dates to me, which was ironic considering she'd left me to avoid making comparisons. The most telling detail came from our mutual friend Sarah, who had been Jenna's confidant throughout this process. According to Sarah, Jenna had started regretting her decision within 3 months of our breakup but was too proud to admit it. She'd convinced herself that she just needed to keep looking and eventually she'd find someone who made her forget about our relationship. Instead, every disappointing date and failed connection had made her more nostalgic for what we'd had together. By month 6, she was actively hoping to run into me around the city. By month 7, she was asking mutual friends for updates about my life. When she learned that I was dating someone seriously, she'd apparently had a complete breakdown. She kept saying she thought you'd wait for her, Sarah told me during a coffee catch-up. She really believed you'd still be available when she was ready to come back. This confirmed what I'd suspected during our breakup conversation. Jenna had viewed our relationship as a safety net she could fall back on after experimenting with other options. She'd never considered that I might move on and find someone better suited for me. Meanwhile, my relationship with Riley continued to flourish. We'd started planning our wedding for the following October, and every aspect of the process reinforced how compatible we were. Where wedding planning with Jenna would have involved compromise and negotiation, Riley and I found ourselves naturally agreeing on most decisions. More importantly, Riley never made me feel like I was lucky she'd chosen me or like she was settling for me. She made it clear every day that she was excited to build a life together and that she viewed our relationship as a partnership rather than a convenience. The contrast between my relationships with Jenna and Riley was stark. With Jenna, I'd often felt like I was trying to convince her that our relationship was worth her investment. With Riley, we were both equally invested from the beginning. 3 months after Jenna's visit, I ran into her at a restaurant downtown. Riley and I were having dinner with her parents, who were visiting from out of town, when I saw Jenna across the room. She was alone, picking at a salad and looking miserable. Our eyes met briefly, and she looked like she wanted to come over to our table. But seeing me with Riley and her parents, clearly in the middle of a happy family gathering, seemed to drive home the reality that I'd moved on completely. Jenna left the restaurant shortly after noticing us, but not before I saw her taking photos of our table from across the room. Riley noticed too but didn't say anything until later. "Your ex was taking pictures of us at dinner," she mentioned casually as we drove home. I noticed. "I'm sorry about that." "Don't apologize. I just wanted to make sure you knew in case she tries to use them for something weird." Riley's mature response to the situation reinforced why I'd fallen in love with her. Instead of being jealous or insecure, she was just being practical and protective of our relationship. The next day, I received a long text message from Jenna apologizing for the restaurant incident and reiterating her regret about our breakup. She also mentioned seeing how happy I looked with Riley and said she was glad I'd found someone who made me smile the way she used to. I didn't respond to the text. There was nothing left to say, and engaging with Jenna would only encourage her to continue reaching out. Final update. Riley and I got married last month in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by family and friends who genuinely supported our relationship. It was everything a wedding should be, a celebration of love and commitment between two people who genuinely want to spend their lives together. Jenna did not attend, obviously, but I heard through the grapevine that she'd had another emotional breakdown when the wedding photos started appearing on social media. According to Sarah, Jenna had finally started therapy to work through her issues with commitment and her tendency to sabotage good relationships. "She keeps saying she ruined the best thing in her life," Sarah told me. "I think she's finally starting to understand that the grass isn't always greener." I felt a mixture of sympathy and vindication hearing about Jenna's continued struggles. Sympathy because I genuinely hope she finds happiness and learns from her mistakes. Vindication because her misery confirmed that she'd given up something valuable for something illusory. But mostly, I felt grateful. Grateful that Jenna had shown me who she really was before we got married or had children together. Grateful that her betrayal had forced me to reevaluate what I wanted in a partner. Grateful that I'd had the strength to let her go instead of fighting for someone who didn't value what we had. Most of all, I was grateful for Riley. For her commitment, her maturity, her ability to love without reservation or constant comparison to other options. She'd shown me what a real partnership looked like, and I'd never take that for granted. 6 months into our marriage, Riley and I are discussing starting a family. The conversations are easy and natural because we're both fully committed to building a life together. There's no hedging, no keeping options open, no wondering if we might find something better somewhere else. Jenna recently started dating someone new, according to the social media updates I occasionally see through mutual friends. I hope it works out for her, and I hope she's learned to appreciate what she is instead of constantly looking for something better. As for me, I learned that when someone tells you they want to see what else is out there, you should let them go. Not out of spite or revenge, but because you deserve someone who doesn't need to shop around to know they want to be with you. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone leave so you can find the person who would never consider leaving in the first place.